My name is Victoria Chin, 42, and I stood in the empty offices of what used to be our thriving marketing agency, staring at the bare walls where our awards and client photos once hung. After 12 years of partnership, Marcus had simply vanished overnight, taking everything we'd built together while I was recovering from emergency surgery. What he didn't know is that I'd been documenting his suspicious activities for months. The company he thought he'd stolen completely was just the tip of the iceberg. As I surveyed the gutted office space, I smiled grimly. The real game was about to begin. Before I continue, I'm curious where you're following along from today. Business betrayal happens in every industry, doesn't it? If my story of calculated revenge against my partner's devastating betrayal resonates with you, please hit that like button. It took me months to build up the courage to share this journey, and your support means everything. Subscribe to follow my path from discovering my partner's theft to reclaiming everything he stole in ways he never saw coming. From the outside, Marcus Sullivan and I had the perfect business partnership. Our agency, Chin and Sullivan Creative, had grown from a 2-person startup to a 45-employee powerhouse generating 12 figures annually. We were featured on the covers of Advertising Age and Entrepreneur magazine as the dynamic duo reshaping Chicago's creative landscape. The strategic Asian American woman with her MBA from Northwestern paired with the charismatic Irish American visionary who could sell ice to penguins. Everyone envied our professional chemistry and meteoric success. The reality behind our polished conference room doors told a dramatically different story. We met during a case study competition at Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management when I was 28 and he was 30. Marcus, with his infectious laugh, his bold ideas, and his ability to make everyone in the room feel like they were part of something revolutionary, swept me into his orbit immediately. I was pursuing my MBA while working part-time at a small boutique design firm, grinding through 80-hour weeks and living on instant ramen to afford tuition. He was the golden boy of our marketing program, already networking with Fortune 500 executives and talking about disrupting the entire advertising industry. Those early brainstorming sessions were absolutely electric. We would meet at all-night diners near campus, surrounded by coffee-stained notebooks and laptop computers, mapping out business plans that felt like battle strategies for conquering the world. I would develop comprehensive financial models and operational frameworks, while he painted vivid pictures of our future empire, complete with international offices and industry-changing campaigns. "We're going to revolutionize how businesses think about brand storytelling," he would say, sketching organizational charts on napkins at 2 a.m. "You bring the analytical genius, I bring the creative vision. We'll be unstoppable as equal partners in everything." When we graduated in May 2012, I liquidated my entire $47,000 inheritance from my deceased parents, money I had been saving for a house down payment, to provide our initial operating capital. Marcus claimed he was contributing $75,000 from family investments and his personal savings, though I never saw documentation of these funds. I believed completely in our shared vision of creating an agency that combined rigorous data analysis with breakthrough creative work. Our roles divided naturally during those early months. I handled operations, finance, strategic planning, and client analytics, while Marcus managed new business development, creative direction, and what he called relationship architecture. My analytical mind thrived on building systems, optimizing workflows, negotiating favorable vendor contracts, creating the financial infrastructure that would support our ambitious growth plans. Marcus's natural magnetism made him the face everyone remembered, the one potential clients requested specifically and competitors tried desperately to poach. By our 3rd year, we were profitable enough to move from my cramped studio apartment to a real office space in River North. By year 5, we had landed our first 7-figure retainer with a major consumer goods company. By year 8, acquisition-hungry conglomerates were scheduling quarterly meetings to discuss potential buyout offers that made my head spin with their sheer magnitude. I was genuinely proud of what we had built together, never questioning why Marcus insisted on handling all external financial relationships, banking arrangements, and investor communications while I managed what he cheerfully called the engine room operations. You're absolutely brilliant with numbers and systems, Vic. He would say whenever I suggested getting more involved in banking relationships, investor meetings, or high-level strategic partnerships. Let me handle all the schmoozing and relationship management. You focus on what you do best, making sure everything runs like clockwork. The division seemed logical and played to our respective strengths. Marcus was naturally gifted at reading people, understanding their motivations, and crafting proposals that felt personally tailored to each prospect's specific needs and ego. I was detail-oriented, systematic, and able to spot inefficiencies or opportunities that others missed completely. Gradually, however, I began to realize I was being systematically excluded from increasingly important aspects of our business operations. Marcus controlled all relationships with our primary bank, our corporate attorney, our insurance broker, and our certified public accountant. He managed contracts with our largest vendors and maintained exclusive communication with potential acquisition partners. When I questioned this arrangement during our monthly partner meetings, he deflected with smooth explanations that always sounded reasonable in the moment. It's simple division of labor, he would explain, spreading his hands in a gesture of obvious logic. You run the engine that makes everything possible. I manage the fuel that keeps us growing. Clients get confused when they have multiple points of contact for strategic decisions. It's much more efficient this way. The control extended far beyond pure financial matters. Marcus positioned himself as the primary relationship manager for all our most prestigious and profitable clients. He attended industry conferences alone, claiming my presence wasn't necessary for the networking and relationship building that really drives new business. He hired and fired senior management personnel without consulting me, explaining that clients and employees preferred dealing with a single clear decision maker rather than a committee approach. When I expressed concerns about being excluded from these critical business functions, my objections were dismissed as micromanagement tendencies that could actually harm our client relationships and company culture. You're incredibly talented, Vic, but you're maybe a little too detail-oriented for the big-picture relationship stuff, he would say with what seemed like genuine affection and concern. Trust me to handle the vision and strategy while you perfect the execution and operations. That's what makes us such a powerful team. Friends and colleagues in the industry slowly began treating me as Marcus's exceptionally capable second-in-command rather than his equal partner. At networking events, they would ask about Marcus's agency and inquire about my role in his success story. I found myself nodding along to these conversations, uncertain exactly when the narrative had shifted so completely from our shared enterprise to his personal achievement. The first serious crack in what I had believed was our rock-solid partnership appeared exactly 2 years ago during a routine quarterly financial review. While examining our revenue statements, I noticed significant discrepancies between the client payments I had been tracking through our internal accounting system and the total revenue figures reported on our official financial documents. When I brought these inconsistencies to the attention of Harold Brennan, the CPA who had been managing our books for 6 years, he seemed visibly uncomfortable and reluctant to provide direct answers to my straightforward questions. You'll need to speak with Marcus about account classifications and some of the more complex client arrangements, he said, avoiding direct eye contact and shuffling through papers unnecessarily. There are some sophisticated financial structures that I'm not authorized to discuss with other parties without his explicit permission. Other parties. In our own company. The phrase hit me like a physical blow, crystallizing a growing sense that something fundamental had shifted in our business relationship without my knowledge or consent. That evening, I confronted Marcus directly about the revenue gaps and Harold's strange reluctance to discuss our own company's financial structure with me. Marcus had immediate explanations for everything: complex client payment schedules, sophisticated revenue recognition strategies, intricate retainer structures that optimized our tax position, and cash flow management. His answers were detailed, plausible, and delivered with the confident expertise that had always been one of his most impressive qualities. Harold's been handling our books perfectly for 6 years, Marcus said with a slight laugh that suggested my concerns were endearing but unnecessary. Do you really think there's some kind of conspiracy or cover-up happening, Vic? Sometimes that analytical mind of yours works against you when you start seeing patterns that aren't really there. But despite his reasonable explanations, I couldn't shake the increasingly strong feeling that something fundamental had changed in our financial structure without my full understanding or explicit agreement. The second major warning sign appeared 6 months later during what should have been a routine staff meeting to review our quarterly performance metrics. Jenny Morrison, our head of account management and one of our most trusted senior employees, casually mentioned a client I had never heard of, Meridian Holdings, that apparently generated substantial monthly revenue for our agency. I'm sorry, who exactly is Meridian Holdings? I asked after the meeting had concluded and most staff members had returned to their desks. Marcus looked genuinely surprised by my question, as if I had somehow forgotten about a major client relationship. Oh, they're one of our strategic consulting clients. Very confidential work, which is why we don't discuss them in general staff meetings. I handle their account exclusively because of the sensitive nature of their business operations. When I pressed for more specific details about their industry, their consulting needs, and their revenue impact on our business, Marcus became increasingly evasive and dismissive. It's mostly high-level strategic consulting for their portfolio companies. Nothing that directly affects our creative work or your operational responsibilities. Very hush-hush stuff, you understand. Over the following weeks, I began paying much closer attention to casual conversations, email communications, and documents that crossed my desk in the normal course of business operations. I started noticing references to clients I didn't recognize, vendor relationships I had never approved or negotiated, and financial arrangements that seemed to exist entirely outside our normal business infrastructure. The moment that changed everything arrived 8 months ago during what should have been a completely routine insurance policy renewal process. Our commercial insurance broker, David Kim, called me directly about updating our business interruption coverage and professional liability limits. I need to verify the accurate revenue figures for the policy calculations, he explained in his straightforward, professional manner. The numbers Marcus provided for the application seemed significantly inconsistent with your reported earnings in previous years. Could you help me reconcile these discrepancies? After ending the call, I spent 3 hours that evening methodically reviewing every piece of insurance documentation I could locate in our files. The revenue figures Marcus had reported to our insurance company were approximately 40% higher than what our internal accounting systems indicated we were actually generating. Either we were dramatically underreporting our success in our internal financial management, or Marcus was systematically inflating our numbers for external purposes that I couldn't begin to understand. That weekend, I made a decision that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of both our partnership and my entire professional life. I hired a private investigator to conduct an independent examination of our business operations and Marcus's financial activities. Sarah Kim came highly recommended by Jennifer Walsh, a lawyer friend who specialized in white-collar crime cases and had mentioned Sarah's exceptional work on several high-profile corporate fraud investigations. Her office was located discreetly on the 32nd floor of a downtown high-rise, and she listened with complete professionalism and without any trace of judgment as I carefully outlined my growing suspicions and concerns. Business partnerships are psychologically very similar to marriages, she observed when I had finished my detailed explanation. The betrayal feels intensely personal because the relationship was built on fundamental trust and shared objectives. But unlike divorce proceedings, business fraud carries serious criminal implications that can destroy lives and careers permanently. Sarah provided me with a systematic approach to gathering information that would either confirm or dispel my concerns. Document everything carefully. Secure personal copies of all records and communications. Establish independent relationships with key vendors and clients. And most importantly, maintain complete discretion about the research. The element of surprise is your only significant advantage in this type of situation, she advised with the gravity of someone experienced in these matters. Once he realizes you're looking into things, he'll move quickly to provide explanations for any questions you might have. Over the next several months, I maintained what felt like a completely separate focus that was both demanding and necessary. During normal business hours, I continued our typical partnership routine, attending meetings, managing daily operations, and maintaining our usual working relationship. During evenings and weekends, I carefully reviewed what I was beginning to understand were complex business arrangements. The first major discovery was that Marcus had established multiple companies using variations of our business name and registration information. Chen Sullivan Marketing LLC, Sullivan Creative Solutions Inc., CNS Strategic Consulting Corp., each operating as separate legal entities with their own tax identification numbers, separate bank accounts, and independent contractor relationships. Several of our major clients were actually working with these companies directly while believing they were working with Chen and Sullivan Creative. The mysterious Meridian Holdings that Jenny had mentioned turned out to be quite interesting. It wasn't a consulting client. It was Marcus's personal investment company, funded by profits from business operations through the various company network. He had been building his own investment portfolio, real estate holdings, and asset collection. Records showed that Marcus had managed over $2.8 million during the previous 4 years through these arrangements. While I was living modestly in my original one-bedroom apartment and driving a 7-year-old Honda Civic, Marcus had purchased a $1.2 million lakefront home, a $200,000 luxury car, and multiple investment properties. The emotional impact of these discoveries was significant. For 12 years, I had believed we were building something meaningful together, making personal sacrifices for our shared vision. Every late night I had spent working on operations. Every weekend I had dedicated to client needs. All of it had been supporting Marcus's wealth building while I remained unaware of the full scope of our company's financial activities. But the analytical side of my mind began developing a different kind of response strategy. I could create an equally systematic approach to understand his business methods, protect my interests, and ensure appropriate outcomes. I opened new bank accounts at a different financial institution using my maiden name, Chin, and began managing funds from client payments more directly. I established independent business relationships with our key vendors, positioning myself as a primary contact for billing inquiries, service issues, and contract renewals. Most importantly, I began building direct, personal relationships with decision makers at our major client companies. Under the approach of improving service delivery and ensuring client satisfaction, I scheduled regular meetings with marketing directors, brand managers, and senior executives at our most valuable accounts. What I discovered during these client meetings was quite revealing. Several clients had been specifically requesting to work with me directly on strategic projects, but were consistently informed that I wasn't available for client-facing responsibilities. "We always assumed you were more focused on the behind-the-scenes operational work," mentioned Janet Reeves, the marketing director at our largest corporate client. "Marcus repeatedly told us that you preferred concentrating on internal systems and analytics rather than direct client interaction. We would have enjoyed working with you more closely on campaign strategy." This conversation provided important insights that fundamentally changed my understanding of our partnership dynamics. Marcus hadn't just been managing finances independently. He had been actively managing my professional relationships with our own clients, carefully controlling my role in our most important business relationships. The health situation that would ultimately reveal Marcus's complete business approach began with persistent chest discomfort during a particularly busy period in early October. What I initially thought was work-related stress turned out to be a serious cardiac condition requiring emergency surgery to place 2 stents in blocked coronary arteries. Dr. Elena Martinez, my cardiologist, was direct about the severity of my condition. "This is what happens when people don't listen to their body signals for too long," she explained while reviewing my test results. "Your cardiovascular system was sending clear messages that you chose not to hear because you were too focused on work pressures." I would need a minimum of 6 weeks of complete recovery time with very limited work responsibilities and stress exposure. For the first time in 12 years, Marcus would be running our agency without my daily input, analytical support, or operational management. "Don't worry about anything at the office," he assured me the night before my surgery, his expression showing what appeared to be genuine concern. "Focus entirely on getting better and following doctor's orders. I'll handle absolutely everything until you're completely recovered and ready to return." During my first week of recovery, Marcus visited my apartment regularly, bringing flowers, gourmet soup, and detailed updates about agency operations. Everything was running smoothly, he reported confidently. Our clients were completely understanding about my temporary absence, and our staff was performing excellently to maintain our high service standards. By the second week, his visits became noticeably less frequent and considerably shorter. He was managing several situations that required his full attention, he explained, and needed to focus on handling multiple issues that had developed simultaneously. It was during my third week of recovery that I received the first phone call that made me question what was happening at our agency. David Chin, no relation, our IT contractor, called about an urgent system issue that was affecting our ability to access client files and project data. Project data. "I've been trying to reach Marcus for 3 days," he said, clear frustration evident in his voice. "The backup system needs attention, and I need immediate authorization to implement emergency repairs and data recovery procedures. Can you approve the work order so we can get everything back online?" I gave David the authorization he needed, but his call raised questions about Marcus's management of basic business operations. Why wasn't he responding to urgent technical matters? And why hadn't he mentioned any IT issues during his recent visits? Over the next several days, more concerning phone calls began arriving. Our building landlord called about rent payments that were 30 days overdue. A key printing vendor mentioned outstanding invoices. 2 of our junior account coordinators called asking about their paychecks, which hadn't been processed on schedule for the first time in company history. When I asked Marcus about these operational matters during his next visit, he had immediate explanations for every single issue. Temporary cash flow adjustments due to delayed client payments that were common in our industry. Administrative changes that naturally occurred when key personnel were absent during medical situations. But my research instincts were now suggesting that something more significant was happening than simple administrative adjustments. I asked Sarah to immediately expand her research and conduct comprehensive monitoring of Marcus's activities and business operations. Her report was quite comprehensive. Marcus was systematically reorganizing company assets, adjusting long-term vendor relationships, and managing substantial funds through his personal companies and investment accounts. He had provided notice on our office lease and was actively selling company equipment, furniture, and technology assets to commercial services. Most notably, Marcus had scheduled formal meetings with our 3 largest clients to inform them that Chin and Sullivan Creative was transitioning due to my health situation and inability to continue in my current capacity. He was positioning himself to continue serving these accounts through a new company he had already established, Sullivan Strategic Group. Marcus was systematically transitioning our entire business while I recovered from surgery, using my cardiac situation as the basis for completely restructuring everything we had built together over 12 years. The final revelation occurred on a Thursday morning during my 5th week of recovery. I was feeling strong enough to visit our office for the first time since my surgery. The elevator opened to reveal our floor's reception area completely empty of furniture, equipment, and any signs of business activity. Our reception desk was gone. The walls were clear of artwork and awards, and boxes filled with files were organized near the exit. The professional space that had been our business home for 8 years looked like it was being prepared for new tenants. Marcus appeared from what used to be his private office, carrying a box of personal items and what appeared to be client files. He seemed genuinely surprised to see me standing in our empty workspace. "Vic," he said, setting down his box and quickly composing himself into an expression of concern. "You shouldn't be here. Dr. Martinez said you need complete rest and minimal stress exposure. This kind of environment isn't ideal for your recovery." Exposure. This kind of environment isn't ideal for your recovery. I looked around the complete emptiness, trying to process the magnitude of what I was seeing. What exactly is happening here, Marcus? I asked quietly. He began an elaborate explanation about temporary office relocations, complex lease transitions, and strategic restructuring initiatives that would position us for future growth once I was fully recovered. The explanations sounded professional and well-reasoned, but now I could see them with perfect clarity for exactly what they were: carefully prepared presentations designed to explain systematic business transitions. Where are all our employees? I asked, noting the complete absence of any staff members or normal business activity. We've had to make some temporary workforce adjustments during your medical absence, he replied carefully. Nothing that can't be completely reconsidered once you're fully recovered, and we can properly assess our operational needs. I walked slowly through the empty offices, processing not just the physical emptiness, but the emotional magnitude of his comprehensive business restructuring. 12 years of partnership, shared goals, and collaborative work reduced to empty rooms and organized boxes. I need to review our current financial statements and operational reports, I said as calmly as I could manage. Marcus's expression shifted slightly, the first change in his perfectly maintained professional demeanor. Of course, absolutely, he replied. Once you're feeling stronger, and we can sit down properly to review everything in detail without creating stress during your recovery process. In that moment, I understood with perfect clarity that Marcus never intended for me to recover sufficiently to fully understand what he had systematically done with our business. He was counting on my health situation to provide permanent justification for his restructuring of everything we had created together. I'm feeling strong enough right now, I replied with complete calm. Let me see the operational records. What followed was nearly 3 hours of increasingly detailed explanations as Marcus attempted to clarify why our company accounts had been restructured without my input, why our major clients had been transitioned to his new business entity, why our business assets had been reorganized without my knowledge, and why I had been systematically excluded from every significant decision affecting our partnership. His explanations became more elaborate and complex as I asked for specific details about client transitions, asset management, and financial arrangements. Finally, his carefully maintained professional facade shifted completely, revealing the calculated business thinking that had been driving his actions for months. Look, Vic, he said, his tone changing from concerned partner to pragmatic business manager. Your health situation fundamentally changed our business dynamics and long-term planning. The clients were genuinely concerned about stability and continuity. The employees needed absolute certainty about their professional security and career prospects. I had to make executive decisions to preserve what could be maintained from a changing situation. Marcus straightened his tie and checked his watch, his expression becoming coldly professional. I've preserved what could realistically be preserved and positioned it for sustainable future success, he replied without any acknowledgement of partnership considerations. Sullivan Strategic Group will honor our professional legacy and maintain our standards while adapting to new market realities and operational requirements. He reached into his briefcase and handed me a thick envelope that had clearly been prepared in advance. My attorneys have prepared a comprehensive separation agreement that addresses all relevant issues, he said, with the tone of someone discussing a routine business transaction. Given your ongoing health concerns and reduced capacity for high-stress business operations, a clean break serves everyone's best interests. You'll receive a fair financial settlement and can focus on recovery and personal health without the pressures of competitive business management. I opened the envelope to discover legal documents outlining a $75,000 separation payment in exchange for my agreement not to pursue any legal claims against Marcus, his new company, or any business associates. 12 years of partnership, reduced to less than what we used to pay entry-level account coordinators annually. This is quite generous considering the circumstances and market conditions, Marcus added with complete seriousness. Your medical situation makes you effectively unemployable in any serious business capacity for the foreseeable future. This settlement provides time to explore alternative career options that better match your current limitations and health constraints. I folded the documents carefully and placed them back in the envelope without signing anything. "I need time to review these terms and consider my options," I said. Marcus checked his watch again and gathered his remaining personal items. "The building management needs this entire space cleared by tomorrow afternoon," he informed me. "I've arranged temporary storage for your personal belongings, but you'll need to make a final decision very quickly to avoid complicating the transition process." As I left what had been our office building for what Marcus clearly expected would be the final time, I felt the familiar calm settling over me that had sustained me through months of investigation and evidence gathering. For nearly a year, I had been unconsciously preparing for exactly this moment without fully realizing it. Now it had arrived, and instead of devastating grief, I felt only cold, focused determination. The separation agreement Marcus had prepared would become the first piece of evidence in what would destroy his life completely, not the conclusion of his successful theft. Every lie he had told, every asset he had stolen, every client relationship he had claimed through deception, all of it was thoroughly documented, recorded, and ready to be exposed through legal and criminal proceedings. Marcus had made the fatal mistake that destroys most white-collar criminals. He had completely underestimated his victim's intelligence, resources, and determination to fight back. He had counted on my illness, my supposed social isolation, and my alleged dependence on his business expertise to ensure my passive acceptance of his comprehensive theft. What he didn't understand was that the analytical mind he had dismissed as suitable only for operational minutiae had been systematically building an airtight legal case against him for months. The health crisis that he believed provided perfect cover for his betrayal had actually given me the time, motivation, and clarity necessary to complete my investigation and prepare for total war. That evening, I met with Sarah Kim and attorney Rebecca Torres, who specialized in complex business fraud cases and partnership dispute litigation. We spent 4 hours reviewing the comprehensive evidence I had gathered, including bank records, client communications, documented proof of Marcus's shell company operations, and recorded conversations that clearly established his intent to defraud. "This is one of the most systematic and sophisticated cases of partnership fraud I've encountered in 15 years of practice," Rebecca said, spreading hundreds of documents across her conference table. "He's committed multiple felonies while simultaneously violating your partnership agreement in every conceivable way. The criminal exposure alone could result in decades of federal prison time." The legal strategy was straightforward, but absolutely devastating in its scope and implications. We would file both comprehensive civil lawsuits and criminal complaints simultaneously, seeking complete recovery of all stolen assets while pursuing prosecutorial action for business fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, and racketeering violations. More importantly, we would notify all clients, vendors, industry contacts, and professional organizations about Marcus's fraudulent activities before he could complete his transition to Sullivan Strategic Group. His new company would be stillborn, strangled by legal complications and complete reputation destruction before it could generate a single dollar of revenue. "He's counting on you being too sick, too scared, too financially dependent, or too socially isolated to mount effective resistance," Rebecca explained with the confidence of someone who had seen these cases hundreds of times. "When he realizes the magnitude of his miscalculation, he'll try desperately to negotiate some kind of settlement. Don't give him that satisfaction or opportunity." The time for reasonable discussion ended permanently when he decided to steal your life's work while you were fighting for your health. The media strategy was equally important for ensuring complete destruction of Marcus's professional reputation and future business prospects. Sarah had cultivated relationships with journalists at industry publications, local business journals, and investigative reporters who were always interested in stories about corporate fraud, partnership betrayals, and white-collar crime in Chicago's business community. Let him enjoy his stolen success and premature celebration for a few more days, Sarah advised with a slight smile. Once we file the legal complaints and release the evidence to media contacts, his entire world will collapse so completely that he'll never recover professionally or personally. I spent that weekend in my condo, surrounded by boxes of evidence, legal documents, and detailed timelines, feeling more energized and focused than I had since before my cardiac event. The chronic stress that had contributed to my heart problems was completely gone, replaced by crystalline determination to reclaim everything Marcus had stolen and ensure he faced appropriate consequences for his betrayal. Monday morning arrived with perfect October sunshine streaming through my windows. I made coffee, reviewed my evidence files one final time, and called Rebecca to begin the process that would systematically destroy Marcus Sullivan's carefully constructed theft and rebuild my professional life on a foundation of integrity rather than deception. "Are you absolutely ready for this level of warfare?" she asked seriously. "Once we file these documents and initiate criminal proceedings, there's no possibility of retreat or reconciliation. Marcus will fight back with everything he has, and it could become very ugly and very public very quickly." I looked around my modest condo, thinking about the $1.2 million lakefront mansion Marcus had purchased with money stolen from our partnership, the luxury vehicles he drove with funds diverted from our shared profits, the investment portfolio he had built while telling me our business was barely sustainable financially. "I'm completely ready," I said with absolute certainty. "Let's reclaim everything he stole and make sure he faces criminal consequences for every dollar of fraud." The first devastating blow landed when process servers delivered comprehensive legal documents to Marcus at what he believed was a confidential client meeting with our former largest account. The timing was absolutely deliberate. Sarah had been monitoring his schedule and communications, and we wanted his professional reputation to begin crumbling immediately and publicly. The client meeting ended abruptly when Marcus was served with both civil lawsuits seeking $8.2 million in damages and official notice that criminal complaints had been filed with the district attorney's office, the IRS, and federal prosecutors specializing in business fraud cases. Within 3 hours, detailed information about his legal troubles was circulating through our industry's extensive network of executives, account managers, and business development professionals. Marcus called me repeatedly throughout that day, his voicemail messages escalating from confused concern to desperate anger to panicked threats that would later be used as evidence of witness intimidation attempts. "What the hell are you doing, Vic?" he screamed in his final message of the evening. "You're destroying everything we built together over 12 years. I was trying to protect you from the stress and complexity of business operations during your recovery. Now you're going to ruin both of us and everything we worked for." I didn't respond to any of his calls or messages. My legal team had been explicit about maintaining complete silence during active litigation proceedings. Every word would be recorded and potentially used against me in court, and Marcus's increasingly unhinged communications were providing excellent evidence of his guilty conscience and desperation. The second phase of our legal assault began the following morning when Rebecca filed emergency motions to freeze all of Marcus's personal and business assets, recover stolen company property, and obtain temporary restraining orders preventing him from contacting clients, vendors, or employees. Bank accounts were frozen, real estate transactions were blocked, and luxury assets purchased with diverted funds were placed under court protection pending final resolution. Marcus's new company, Sullivan Strategic Group, was served with cease and desist orders for trademark infringement, client solicitation violations, and theft of proprietary business information. The seamless transition he had planned became a legal nightmare that immediately scared away every potential client and made his new venture completely unviable. Industry publications picked up the story by Wednesday afternoon. Marketing agency partner accused of systematic multi-million-dollar fraud read the front-page headline in Advertising Age, complete with detailed sidebar articles about shell company operations, diverted client payments, and my cardiac event that Marcus had used as cover for accelerated theft activities. Marcus's professional reputation, carefully built over 2 decades, was evaporating in real time as former colleagues distanced themselves. Industry organizations quietly removed him from leadership positions and membership roles, and potential business contacts canceled meetings and avoided association with his name. The criminal investigation proceeded faster than anyone had anticipated. Financial crimes prosecutors revealed they had been tracking Marcus's shell company activities for several months as part of a broader investigation into tax evasion schemes involving Chicago area business professionals. My evidence provided the missing documentation they needed to build comprehensive criminal cases. Federal grand jury indictments were issued within 4 weeks of our initial filing. Marcus was charged with 31 counts, including business fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, racketeering, and witness intimidation based on his threatening voicemails. The charges carried potential sentences totaling over 45 years in federal prison and financial penalties exceeding $12 million. Patricia Sullivan, Marcus's wife, who had been living comfortably off stolen funds without apparent knowledge of their criminal source, found herself facing asset forfeiture proceedings that would recover the lakefront mansion, luxury vehicles, boat, and investment properties as proceeds of criminal activity. Their 2 teenage children would lose their private school educations and college funds that had been funded entirely through theft. Marcus's desperate attempts to negotiate plea bargains or settlement agreements were immediately dismissed by both my legal team and federal prosecutors. His theft had been too systematic, too sophisticated, and too devastating to warrant any consideration of reduced charges or lenient treatment. The criminal trial began 8 months after my initial discovery of our empty office space. I testified for 5 days, methodically walking the jury through Marcus's elaborate fraud scheme while maintaining the calm, analytical demeanor that had served me throughout my business career and investigation process. Marcus's defense strategy was predictably self-serving and completely divorced from reality. He claimed I had been a silent partner who had voluntarily agreed to let him handle all financial matters independently. He portrayed himself as the victim of a vindictive ex-partner who was using the legal system to settle personal grievances and extract undeserved compensation. His attorneys attempted to paint me as an unstable individual whose cardiac event had triggered paranoid delusions about business fraud and partnership betrayal. They suggested my investigation had been the product of post-surgical depression and anxiety rather than legitimate concerns about systematic theft. The evidence I had gathered over months of careful documentation systematically dismantled every aspect of his defense strategy. Bank records, client communications, employee testimonies, recorded phone conversations, and forensic accounting analysis painted an undeniable picture of premeditated fraud and elaborate deception. The shell companies, the diverted payments, the falsified tax returns, the luxury purchases funded by stolen money. Every element of Marcus's criminal enterprise was documented in excruciating detail that left no room for alternative explanations or reasonable doubt. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all 31 criminal counts. Marcus was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison without possibility of parole and ordered to pay $6.8 million in restitution, representing not just the stolen funds, but also punitive damages, interest, and compensation for the destruction of my business reputation and health. During the victim impact statement portion of sentencing, I addressed Marcus directly for the first time since our confrontation in the empty office building. 12 years ago, I trusted you with my life savings, my professional reputation, my health, and my dreams of building something meaningful that would outlast both of us. I began, my voice steady and clear. I believed we were genuine partners in every sense, sharing risks equally, sharing rewards fairly, and sharing responsibility for our mutual success and the livelihoods of our employees. Marcus stared at the defendant's table, unable to meet my eyes as I continued. The financial theft was devastating and will take years to recover from completely. But the personal betrayal was infinitely worse. You didn't just steal money, you stole years of my life that I can never reclaim. You stole credit for achievements that were collaborative efforts. You stole my confidence in my own judgment, my ability to trust business partners, and my belief that hard work and integrity would be rewarded fairly. I paused, gathering my thoughts before delivering my conclusion. Most painfully, you used my health crisis, a cardiac event partially caused by the stress of unknowingly working for someone who is systematically stealing from our shared enterprise, as convenient cover to accelerate your theft and complete your betrayal. You gambled that I would be too sick, too isolated, or too broken to fight back effectively. Looking directly at Marcus, I concluded, I hope your time in federal prison provides genuine opportunity for reflection about the lives you've destroyed through your selfishness, greed, and complete absence of moral character. The employees you terminated to cover your theft. The clients you deceived while stealing from our partnership. The vendors you refused to pay while funding your luxury lifestyle with stolen money. The courtroom was completely silent as I returned to my seat. Marcus was led away in handcuffs and leg shackles, his shoulders sagging under the weight of consequences he had never imagined would materialize. Outside the federal courthouse, reporters and industry publications requested interviews about my plans for rebuilding my professional life and business operations. I had prepared a brief statement that focused on moving forward rather than dwelling on Marcus's destruction. Chin and Associates will continue serving our clients with the same analytical rigor, strategic insight, and ethical standards that built our original reputation in Chicago's marketing community, I announced. We're actively hiring talented professionals who share our commitment to transparent business practices, collaborative client relationships, and absolutely uncompromising integrity. The agency I rebuilt from nothing was smaller initially, but infinitely stronger than what Marcus and I had created together. Without his need to fund secret luxury lifestyles and illegal investment schemes, we were dramatically more profitable with half the previous revenue. Without his controlling personality dominating every client relationship and internal decision, I discovered capabilities for business development and strategic leadership that neither of us had recognized during our partnership. Several former employees returned enthusiastically, grateful to work in an environment completely free from Marcus's manipulative management style, financial deception, and psychological intimidation tactics. New clients were attracted by our growing reputation for integrity, transparency, and delivering exceptional results rather than managing executive egos and political relationships. Most satisfying was discovering that many of our original major clients had specifically requested to continue working with me rather than following Marcus to his failed new venture. The operational support person he had dismissed as unsuitable for client relationships had actually been the primary reason several prestigious accounts had remained loyal to our agency for years. Patricia Sullivan, after losing their home and all investments to federal asset forfeiture, filed for divorce during Marcus's second year in prison. She relocated to another state where her connection to his crimes would be less publicly known, and she legally changed both her name and their children's surnames to escape association with his criminal reputation. Marcus wrote to me after completing his first year of incarceration, attempting to apologize and claiming to understand the depth of his betrayal for the first time. His letter was filled with self-serving explanations about business pressures and competitive stress that had somehow justified systematic theft and fraud in his mind. I read his letter once and filed it with other legal documents without responding. Some relationships cannot be repaired regardless of remorse or changed circumstances, and some betrayals are too fundamental and destructive to warrant forgiveness or continued communication. 2 years after Marcus began serving his sentence, I established the Chin Foundation for Business Ethics and Partnership Protection, providing resources and legal support for small business owners facing partnership fraud, corporate theft, and professional betrayal. The foundation offered emergency financial grants, legal assistance referrals, and consulting services for entrepreneurs recovering from business relationships that had turned predatory. The foundation's work attracted national attention from business schools, professional organizations, and government agencies interested in preventing partnership fraud and educating business owners about protecting themselves from financial manipulation by trusted colleagues and business associates. I began speaking regularly at conferences, universities, and professional development seminars about recognizing warning signs of partnership problems, maintaining proper oversight of business finances, and building systems that prevent systematic theft by trusted partners. Business partnerships require the same careful attention to transparency and accountability as any other fiduciary relationship, I would tell audiences of entrepreneurs and business students. Trust must always be verified through independent systems, regular audits, and shared access to critical financial information. The moment one partner begins excluding others from key decisions or relationships, the partnership has already begun to fail. After my presentations, business owners would approach with their own stories of partnership betrayals, financial deceptions, and professional sabotage. Many were still trapped in toxic business relationships, afraid to confront partners they suspected of unethical or illegal behavior, but uncertain about their options or ability to fight back effectively. Document everything meticulously, I advised them, using the same systematic approach Sarah Kim had taught me years earlier. Trust your analytical instincts, build independent relationships with clients and vendors, and never allow anyone to convince you that legitimate concerns about financial irregularities are overreactions or signs of paranoia. The most rewarding aspect of my rebuilt career became helping other business owners navigate partnership disputes, corporate fraud investigations, and the complex legal and financial challenges of recovering from systematic business betrayal. My experience with comprehensive evidence gathering, forensic accounting, and criminal prosecution had proven invaluable to entrepreneurs facing similar situations with predatory partners who had underestimated their victims' intelligence, resources, and determination to seek justice. Marcus was scheduled for potential parole consideration after serving 12 years of his 18-year sentence, though additional charges related to tax evasion schemes discovered during his incarceration would likely extend his time in federal prison significantly. His attempts to maintain professional relationships through prison correspondence had been largely unsuccessful. Most former colleagues and industry contacts had moved beyond any interest in his rehabilitation or future business prospects. His new company, Sullivan Strategic Group, had never generated a single dollar of legitimate revenue before being dissolved due to criminal liability and complete reputation destruction. The clients he had planned to serve through his theft had immediately terminated all relationships once his criminal charges became public knowledge. Eleanor Sullivan, who had worked as our office manager during the early years, contacted me through mutual acquaintances to express regret about the situation and her failure to recognize signs of Marcus's criminal behavior. I acknowledged her message professionally, but maintained appropriate distance. She had benefited from stolen funds for years and had actively participated in excluding me from financial decisions, even if she claimed ignorance about the criminal nature of those actions. On the 5th anniversary of discovering our empty office, I often walked past the building where Chin and Sullivan Creative used to operate. The space had been occupied by different businesses over the years, but I would sometimes pause outside to remember the woman who had stood in that gutted workspace feeling betrayed, isolated, and uncertain about her ability to rebuild her professional life. That woman had been far stronger and more capable than she realized at the time. The analytical skills Marcus had dismissed as suitable only for operational minutiae had been exactly what was needed to systematically document his crimes, build a comprehensive legal case, and recover millions of dollars in stolen assets. The attention to detail he had criticized as excessive micromanagement had provided the thorough evidence necessary to secure criminal convictions and complete asset recovery. The health crisis he had tried to exploit as permanent cover for his theft had actually provided the time and clarity necessary to complete my investigation and prepare for total legal warfare. 10 years after Marcus's conviction, Chin and Associates had grown to employ 23 professionals across multiple service lines, maintaining our reputation as one of Chicago's most trusted and effective marketing consultancies. Our client retention rate exceeded 95%, and our referral-based growth model had eliminated the need for aggressive business development or competitive pricing strategies. The woman Marcus had tried to destroy as a limited operational support person had built an agency that consistently outperformed the revenue and profitability metrics of our original partnership. while maintaining ethical standards that attracted both clients and employees who valued integrity above short-term profits. Most importantly, I had discovered capabilities for strategic leadership, business development, and industry influence that had been systematically suppressed during our 12-year partnership. The confidence Marcus had undermined through subtle criticism and deliberate exclusion had been completely restored through the process of exposing his deceptions and building an independent business based on my own values and vision. During a recent industry conference where I was recognized with a Lifetime Achievement Award for business ethics and professional integrity, several colleagues mentioned Marcus's case as a cautionary tale about partnership agreements, financial oversight, and the importance of maintaining independent verification of business operations. His name had become permanently associated with corporate fraud and business betrayal, exactly the opposite of the legacy he had worked so desperately to build through theft and deception. The professional reputation he had stolen from our partnership had been completely destroyed, while the woman he had tried to erase had become a respected voice for ethical business practices and partnership accountability. I was introduced to the conference audience as a keynote speaker on business resilience, ethical leadership, and recovering from professional betrayal. Speaking to hundreds of entrepreneurs and executives about recognizing warning signs of partnership problems and maintaining integrity during periods of growth, competition, and financial pressure. The greatest business partnerships are built on genuine transparency, shared sacrifice, and mutual respect, I told the audience during my closing remarks. But when one partner begins operating in secret, excluding others from critical decisions, or prioritizing personal gain over shared success, the partnership has already been destroyed from within. Looking out at the audience of business leaders, I concluded, trust your analytical instincts, document everything systematically, and never accept explanations that don't align with observable facts. The cost of maintaining proper oversight is always less than the cost of recovering from systematic betrayal by someone you trusted with your professional life and financial future. After the conference, I returned to my home office, the same modest condo I had lived in throughout the partnership years, but now chosen deliberately rather than maintained due to financial constraints. The space reflected my personal values and priorities rather than compromises negotiated with a manipulative partner who had been secretly stealing our shared profits. The awards and recognition displayed on my walls represented achievements earned through my own efforts and integrity, not shared accomplishments tainted by criminal fraud. The financial security I had built was transparent and legally obtained, not hidden through shell companies and systematic theft. Each evening when I reviewed the day's accomplishments and planned the following day's priorities, I felt profound gratitude for the journey that had brought me to genuine independence and professional fulfillment. The perfect partnership I had believed in for 12 years had been an illusion maintained through elaborate deception and financial manipulation. The business I had built independently was smaller in raw revenue, but infinitely more satisfying because every success was authentic, every relationship was genuine, and every dollar was earned through legitimate value creation rather than sophisticated theft. Marcus had been released on supervised parole after serving 14 years of his 18-year sentence. Though his parole conditions included prohibitions on engaging in business activities or financial services that might provide opportunities for similar fraudulent schemes. His attempts to rebuild any form of professional reputation had been unsuccessful. The industry had moved far beyond any interest in his rehabilitation or future contributions. The lakefront mansion, luxury vehicles, and investment portfolio he had purchased with stolen money had been sold years earlier to fund restitution payments and legal fees. He was living in a halfway house and working minimum wage jobs while attempting to complete his court-ordered financial obligations. I had not maintained any contact with Marcus since his imprisonment and had no interest in his rehabilitation or future circumstances. Some chapters of life need to be closed completely rather than revisited, and some betrayals are too fundamental to warrant ongoing concern about the betrayer's consequences or recovery. The Chen Foundation for Business Ethics had helped over 200 entrepreneurs recover from partnership fraud, corporate theft, and systematic business betrayal. Each successful case represented not just financial recovery, but personal transformation, business owners who had discovered their own strength, capability, and resilience through the process of fighting back against predatory partners. The most important lesson I learned, I often told foundation clients, was that the skills and intelligence I had always possessed were more than sufficient to build and manage a successful business independently. The partnership I thought was essential for success had actually been constraining my potential and limiting my professional growth. I've shared this comprehensive story today not just to document what happened during those 12 years of deception and the subsequent legal battle, but to connect with others who might recognize themselves in similar situations of professional betrayal and systematic manipulation. Business fraud by trusted partners is unfortunately common across all industries and company sizes. The emotional impact can be as devastating as the financial losses, and the isolation many victims feel often prevents them from seeking help or fighting back effectively. If my experience resonated with your own observations or experiences, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Have you witnessed similar business betrayals or partnership fraud in your industry? What warning signs did you notice that others might learn from? Please share this story and subscribe to this channel if you'd like to hear more accounts of overcoming corporate fraud, rebuilding after professional betrayal, and recognizing the warning signs of systematic business deception. Your engagement helps these stories reach other business owners who might be facing similar situations and feeling isolated or uncertain about their options. Remember, the first step toward protecting yourself and your business interests is recognizing when someone you trust is systematically operating against your interests while pretending to be your partner. Trust your analytical instincts, maintain independent verification of all financial activities, and never accept explanations that require you to ignore obvious discrepancies or exclude yourself from critical business decisions. Thank you for following my journey from betrayed partner to independent business owner who now helps others recognize, document, and fight back against systematic business fraud and professional deception. The strength to rebuild and seek justice was always there. It just took the right circumstances to discover and apply it effectively.